Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been married to my husband for about 3 years now, and we've got this nice little house that we worked our butts off to afford. It's nothing fancy, but it's ours, and we're proud of it. My husband's got this younger sister who's always been a bit of a handful. Anyway, about a month ago, she calls my husband in tears at 11 at night. She and her boyfriend had this massive blowout fight at their condo, and she walked down with just a backpack and nowhere to go. My husband, being the good brother he is, immediately offered our place without even asking me first. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I couldn't exactly say no to family in crisis, right? When she showed up at our door the next morning, she looked like she'd been through hell. Mascara streaked down her face, hair all messy, and she was clutching this oversized coffee cup like it was a lifeline. She apologized for barging in like this and said she just needed a few days to cool off, then she'd figure things out with her boyfriend. I told her she could stay long she needed, but we needed to go over some basic house rules first. I sat her down at our kitchen table and laid it out clearly. Clean up after yourself, no loud music past 10 because we both work early shifts, and absolutely no smoking inside since she's a chain smoker and the smell makes me sick. Our house, our rules. She nodded eagerly and said she totally understood, promising to follow everything. She thanked us for being lifesavers and seemed genuine enough, so I showed her to the guest room and helped her get settled. Those first few days were actually pretty pleasant. She was quiet, helpful around the house, and even cooked dinner for us one night. I started thinking maybe I'd judged her too harshly in the past, but then something shifted. I think once she got comfortable, her true colors started showing. It began with little things. She'd leave her dirty dishes in the sink instead of washing them right away. She'd stay up watching Netflix in the living room with the volume up, way too loud. And I started catching whiffs of cigarette smoke, though she always denied smoking inside. I asked her about the smoke smell in the house one day. She swore she always went outside and suggested maybe it was just the smell on her clothes. I wanted to believe her, but the smell was getting stronger every day. Then one morning I found cigarette ash on the guest room windowsill. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged and said she cracked the window when she did it, acting like it wasn't a big deal. I reminded her that we agreed no smoking inside, and that included by the window. She rolled her eyes and told me I was starting to sound like my mom, then said I needed to chill out because it wasn't that big of a deal. That comment hit me wrong. My mom is this super controlling person who criticizes everything I do, and comparing me to her was like a slap in the face. But I kept my cool and just reminded her about our agreement. Things got worse fast. By the second week, the house reeked of cigarette smoke constantly. There were dishes piling up in the sink that had been there for days. Her Bluetooth speaker was going off until midnight or later, playing music so loud I could hear it through the walls. When I tried to sleep, the bass would vibrate through the floor. I tried talking to her nicely several more times, but she'd just brush me off or make some sarcastic comment about me being uptight. My husband was working double shifts that week, so he wasn't around to see how bad it had gotten. I was losing sleep, my house smelled like an ashtray, and I was starting to dread coming home. That's when I decided I'd had enough of playing nice. If she wanted to act like she didn't need to follow rules, then maybe she didn't need house privileges either. The next morning after she left to go job hunting, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Then I locked the laundry room where she'd been doing her clothes, and I hid the spare keys to the front gate so she couldn't just come and go without asking. When she came back that afternoon, she tried to connect to the Wi-Fi first thing. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to read a book, when she came walking into the living room. She asked what was wrong with the internet because it wasn't connecting to our network. I told her I had changed the password. She wanted to know why and asked for the new one. I explained that since she didn't follow the house rules, I figured she probably didn't need the house privileges either. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then she tried to go do laundry and found the door locked. She came back even more irritated and asked if I was seriously locking the laundry room. I gave her the same reasoning about no rules, meaning no privileges. She spent the next 2 days sulking around the house like a teenager who'd been grounded. She'd make passive-aggressive comments about me being petty or controlling, but I just ignored her. My husband came home and asked what was going on, and I explained everything. He backed me up, which felt good. On the third day, I woke up to find she'd actually cleaned the entire kitchen. Like, really cleaned it. The dishes were washed and put away, the counters were wiped down, and she'd even swept the floor. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I came down for coffee, looking sheepish. She told me she had cleaned up and asked if she could have the Wi-Fi password back now. I asked about the smoking, and she promised she'd only smoke outside from now on. I asked about the music, and she said it would be off by 10 because she got it. I looked at her for a long moment, then smiled sweetly. I told her I needed her to say something first. She had to say that she would follow the Queen's rules in the Queen's castle. She asked if I was serious, and I told her I was dead serious. She sat there for a minute, clearly wrestling with her pride. Finally, she muttered it. I told her I was sorry, but I didn't quite hear her. She looked up at me with this defeated expression and said it again, louder this time, that she would follow the Queen's rules in the Queen's castle. I wrote down the Wi-Fi password on a piece of paper and handed it to her like I was granting some kind of royal pardon. I told her there she went and welcomed her back to civilization. That was 2 weeks ago, and she's been an angel ever since. She cleans up after herself, keeps the music down, and actually goes outside to smoke. She even started cooking dinner a few nights a week as a way to contribute. I work 2 jobs to pay for my own place. One during the day at an office downtown and weekends at a retail store. I've been into cosmetics since high school, and over the years I've built up a decent collection of quality products. Nothing crazy expensive, but definitely not drugstore stuff either. My aunt called my mom 3 weeks ago saying her apartment needed emergency fumigation. Apparently, her upstairs neighbor had a serious roach problem that spread to her unit. She needed somewhere to crash for the weekend while the exterminators did their thing. My mom, being the helpful sister she is, immediately offered our guest room without even asking me first. The weekend came and went, then another week, then another. Every time I asked when she was going back to her place, she had some new excuse. First it was that they needed to do a second treatment. Then she said she was waiting for the smell to clear out. Then suddenly she was having her floors redone since everything was already moved out anyway. I wouldn't have minded so much if she was just staying in the guest room and keeping to herself. But from day one she made herself completely at home. She'd raid our kitchen like she lived there, leaving dirty dishes everywhere. She'd hog the TV in the living room and change the channel whenever I tried to watch something. But the worst part was how she started treating my stuff like it was hers too. It started small. I'd find her wearing my sweaters or borrowing my shoes without asking. When I brought it up, she'd just laugh it off and tell me I had so many clothes that she figured I wouldn't mind sharing with family. Then she discovered my makeup collection. I keep everything organized in my vanity in my bedroom, but she'd waltz right in and help herself whenever she wanted. I'd come home from work to find my expensive foundation sitting out with the cap off, or my favorite lipstick twisted up way too high. She was wasting so much product by not knowing how to use it properly. The first time I caught her red-handed, I tried to be polite about it. I explained that I'd really appreciate it if she didn't use my makeup because that stuff costs me a lot of money and I need it for work. She brushed me off and told me not to be so stingy, saying I had so much makeup I could open my own store and that I wouldn't even notice if she used a little bit. But I did notice. Every single time. My concealer that should have lasted months was suddenly half empty after 2 weeks. My eyeshadow palettes had finger marks all over them from her digging around without using brushes. She even broke the mirror in my compact powder because she dropped it on the bathroom floor. I tried talking to her again, this time more directly. I told her I was serious about the makeup and asked her to please stop using it without asking. I said if she needed something just let me know and maybe we could work something out. She got annoyed and said I was being ridiculous because it was just makeup. She reminded me that she was family, not some stranger, and claimed she was actually doing me a favor by using it up so it doesn't go bad. That response made my blood boil. She was doing me a favor by destroying my stuff. I realized being nice wasn't going to work with her. The next day, I had an idea. I had an old concealer tube that I'd finished months ago but kept meaning to throw out. It was about 3 shades too light for my skin tone. I carefully removed the label and replaced it with one from my current concealer shade. The packaging looked identical. I left it sitting prominently on top of my vanity like a trap. For the next few days, I watched and waited. I moved my actual makeup to a drawer where she wouldn't find it easily. Sure enough, 3 days later I heard her humming in the bathroom while getting ready for something. I peeked around the corner and saw her applying the fake concealer under her eyes and on her face. She was really going to town with it, layering it on thick. I didn't say anything. I just went about my day like normal. The real test came the following week. My cousin was having a birthday party and my aunt decided to get all dressed up for it. She spent over an hour in the bathroom doing her makeup, and when she came out, I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Her under eye area was practically glowing white. It looked like she'd painted highlighter under her eyes. Against her medium skin tone, it was jarring. She looked like a reverse raccoon, with bright white circles around her eyes instead of dark ones. We all piled into the car to head to the party. My mom kept looking at her in the rearview mirror with a confused expression, but didn't say anything. When we got to the restaurant, the lighting made it even more obvious. Every photo that was taken that night showed her looking like she'd been hit in the face with flour. Other family members started noticing too. My cousin's wife kept staring at her during dinner. My uncle asked if she was feeling okay because she looked a little pale. Even the waitress did a double take when she came to take our order. After dinner, she finally pulled me aside in the parking lot. She asked if I had changed something in my makeup because hers looked weird tonight. I smiled and repeated her own words back to her, telling her that maybe it wasn't her shade after all, but I was sure she wouldn't even notice. Her face went through several expressions when she processed what I'd said. First confusion, then realization, then anger. She stared at me for a long moment like she was trying to figure out if I was messing with her, which, obviously, I was. She demanded to know if I was serious and if I had set her up. I explained that I had asked her multiple times to stop using my makeup, and she had told me I wouldn't notice and that she was doing me a favor. So I figured she wouldn't mind if I did her a favor back. She opened her mouth to argue, then seemed to realize she didn't have a leg to stand on. She'd been caught red-handed, or in this case, white-faced. She huffed loudly and walked off to get in the car. The car ride home was beautifully awkward. She sat in the back seat, scrubbing at her face with makeup wipes, trying to get the ghostly concealer off. My mom kept asking what was wrong, but my aunt just grumbled that she'd had an allergic reaction to something. When we got home, she went straight to her room and slammed the door. I heard her on the phone with someone, probably complaining about how terrible I was, but I didn't care. I was just proud that my plan had worked so perfectly. The next morning, she announced that her apartment was finally ready and she'd be moving back out that weekend. Funny how quickly the fumigation issues resolved themselves. Once she'd been publicly embarrassed, she did end up staying with us a few more times over the next couple of months when she had other apartment issues. But the strangest thing happened. She never touched a single one of my belongings again. Not my clothes, not my snacks, and definitely not my makeup. She'd even ask permission before using our bathroom towels. I'm a single dad raising my 8-year-old son after my wife passed away 2 years ago. It's been tough, but we've managed to find our rhythm together. Every summer, I take him to the same beach where we used to go as a family. It's about an hour drive from our apartment, but it's worth it because the memories there keep my wife's spirit alive for both of us. My son loves the water more than anything. He's been swimming since he was 4, and now he's like a little fish. The beach we go to has this perfect shallow area where kids can play safely while parents keep an eye on them from the shore. It's not a crowded tourist spot, just a quiet local beach that most people don't know about. Last Saturday started out perfect. We got to the beach early, around 9 in the morning, and my son immediately ran into the water. I set up our little camping chairs and watched him splash around in the shallow area. He was having the time of his life, diving for shells and pretending to be a dolphin. Around 10:30, this middle-aged woman showed up with a fishing rod and a tackle box. She had short blonde hair and was wearing a sun hat that looked expensive. She walked right up to the water's edge where my son was playing and started setting up her fishing gear. My son noticed her and swam over to say hello. He's always been friendly with strangers, maybe too friendly sometimes. My son asked her cheerfully if she was going to catch fish. The woman barely looked at him and just grunted something under her breath. She started casting her line, and I noticed she was throwing it pretty close to where my son was swimming. I walked over to them. I politely told her that my son was here first and asked if she could maybe fish from a different spot. She snapped back that this was public property and she could fish wherever she wanted. I explained that I understood that, but there was plenty of beach and my kid was just playing in the shallow water. She replied rudely that maybe my kid should learn to share. I was already getting annoyed, but I tried to stay calm. My son has just as much right to be in the water when she has to fish, but I also didn't want to start a fight over something that could be worked out. I suggested we compromise and pointed out there was a rocky area about 50 feet down where the fish were probably better anyway. She refused to move and called my son a brat, saying he could swim somewhere else. That's when I knew this woman was going to be trouble. Nobody calls my kid names, especially not some random stranger at the beach. But I decided to just move my son to a different area to avoid conflict. I told my son to come on and that we should go swim over there. My son protested that he had found a really cool shell and wanted to keep looking for more. The woman ordered him to move, saying he heard his father. The way she said it made my blood boil. She had no right to order my kid around, but I just took my son by the hand and led him to another spot about 20 feet away. For the next hour, everything seemed fine. My son was playing in the new spot, and the woman was fishing. I thought the problem was solved. Then around noon, my son decided he wanted to go back to the original spot to look for more shells. I didn't see any harm in it since the woman was still fishing but not casting in that exact area anymore. My son waded back into the shallow water where he'd been playing before. He was maybe waist deep, just feeling around with his feet for shells. That's when the woman noticed him. She yelled at him to stay away from there, reminding him that she had already told him to leave. My son explained that he was just looking for shells and wasn't bothering her fishing. She screamed that he was scaring away the fish and told him to get out of there right now. I stood up from my chair ready to intervene again. But before I could even take a step, I watched this woman deliberately cast her fishing line directly at my son. The hook flew through the air and landed in the water right next to him. My son jumped back, startled. My son ran toward me, shouting that she had almost hit him. I demanded to know what the hell was wrong with her. She claimed she was just trying to get his attention, and maybe now he would listen. I walked into the water toward my son, furious. This woman had just thrown a fishing hook at an 8-year-old child. I was about to really let her have it when she cast her line again, this time even closer to my son. I yelled at her to stop throwing that thing at my kid. She yelled back that I should get him out of her fishing spot. My son tried to swim away from her, but she kept casting in his direction. I could see the fear in his eyes when he tried to dodge the hooks flying at him. I threatened to call the police if she didn't stop right now. She told me to go ahead because this was public property and she had every right to fish here. That's when it happened. She cast her line one more time, and this time the hook caught my son right in the shoulder. He screamed and came running out of the water with blood streaming down his arm. My son ran to me crying that she had got him. I've never felt rage like that in my entire life. My son was bleeding, crying, and shaking. The hook had gone deep into his shoulder muscle. I screamed at her that she had just assaulted my child and asked what was wrong with her. She claimed it was an accident and that he should have moved when she told him to. I shouted that it wasn't an accident because she had been deliberately throwing hooks at him. I immediately called 911 while trying to comfort my son. The dispatcher said an ambulance and police were on the way. My son was brave, but I could see he was in real pain. The woman said I was overreacting and that it was just a little scratch. I angrily told her that it wasn't just a scratch because she had put a fishing hook in my 8-year-old son. She replied that maybe next time he would listen when an adult told him to move. When the police arrived 10 minutes later, she was still arguing that she had done nothing wrong. The first officer talked to me while the paramedic looked at my son's shoulder. The hook had gone in about an inch deep and needed to be removed at the hospital. My son was being incredibly brave, but I could see he was scared. The officer asked me to tell him what had happened. I explained the whole situation from the beginning when she first showed up to the moment she hooked my son. Meanwhile, the second officer was talking to the woman. The woman told the officer that she was just trying to fish and my kid kept swimming in her spot, claiming she was just trying to get his attention. The officer asked her if she was trying to get his attention by throwing fishing hooks at him. She insisted it was an accident and that kids need to learn to listen to adults. The officer looked at her like she was crazy. He walked over to his partner and they talked quietly for a minute. Then they both came back. The officer told her she was under arrest for assault on a minor. She protested that this was ridiculous and that she was just fishing. The officer explained that she had deliberately thrown a fishing hook at an 8-year-old child and injured him, which was assault. They handcuffed her right there on the beach. She was screaming about how unfair it was and how she was a victim. Other beachgoers had gathered around and were staring at her in disbelief. She yelled that this was harassment and that she was going to sue all of us. The officer told her she had the right to remain silent and suggested she use it. The ambulance took my son to the hospital, where they had to use local anesthesia to remove the hook properly. He needed 12 stitches, and the doctor said it would take about 2 weeks to heal completely. 2 months later, I got a call from the district attorney's office. The woman had been charged with assault on a minor and reckless endangerment. She pled guilty to avoid jail time but got 2 years of probation and had to pay for all of my son's medical bills. I'm 27, but I get mistaken for a teenager all the time because I'm pretty short and have a young-looking face. It's annoying most of the time, but I never thought it would lead to middle schoolers trying to shake me down for money. So here's what happened. My parents went out of town for the weekend and asked me to watch their dog. She's a German Shepherd mix, and she's pretty reactive around strangers. Not mean, just loud and territorial. I'd been staying at their house for 2 days already and everything was going fine. That afternoon, I took the dog for her usual walk around the neighborhood. It was a nice day and she was being good on the leash. We did our normal route and came back home. I unlocked the front door, got the dog inside and locked it back up. The dog went straight to her water bowl and I was about to get myself a snack when the doorbell rang. I looked at the Alexa screen that shows the Ring camera feed and saw 2 kids standing on the porch. They looked like they were maybe in middle school, probably around 13 or 14. One had a bike and the other had a scooter. I hadn't seen them when I was walking back to the house, so I had no idea where they came from or how long they'd been waiting. At first I thought they were probably selling something for school or trying to raise money for some activity. I decided to just ignore them and wait for them to leave. But then the dog started barking like crazy because she could sense people at the door. That's when I heard one of the kids tell the other that he had just seen me go inside. Then the other kid said they had found something that belonged to me and it had money inside. They started knocking really hard on the door, like pounding on it. The dog was going absolutely nuts now, barking and jumping around. I was getting stressed because I didn't know what to do. Were these kids legit? Was this some kind of scam? Was there an adult waiting in a car somewhere? My mind started racing through all the horrible possibilities. The knocking got louder, and then they started kicking the door. I decided I needed to say something, but I definitely wasn't opening the door. I used the Ring doorbell to talk to them. I told them to just leave whatever it was in the mailbox because I couldn't open the door right now since my dog wasn't friendly. This was true. The dog was still barking and jumping around, and she really doesn't like strangers. But also, I had no idea if this was legitimate or if something sketchy was going on. The kids stood there for about 5 more minutes just staring at the camera. Finally, I saw them put something in the mailbox and slowly walk away with their bike and scooter. I watched them leave and felt relieved. But then about 2 minutes later, one of the kids came back by himself. He put his hood up when he approached the door, which made me feel uneasy. He rang the doorbell again. I asked him what was up through the Ring camera. He said his friend wanted a reward. A reward? For what, exactly? I thanked him for bringing back the mail but told him there was no reward and asked him to please leave. The kid just stood there staring at the camera. He didn't move. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then he started demanding a reward again. He said they had brought back my money and they deserved a reward. I was getting really annoyed now. The dog was still barking and this kid was just standing on my parents' porch demanding money from me, like I owed him something. I told him I had his face on camera and if he tried to threaten me, I would call the cops. He said he didn't care if I called the cops because he had returned my money. Then he said if he ever found something for my house again, he wouldn't return it. Then he flipped me off and walked away. I waited until he was completely gone before I went outside to check the mailbox. Inside was an envelope that had been opened. It was from my aunt and had a $20 bill inside. My aunt is old school and still sends cash and cards sometimes. I have no idea how these kids got this envelope or if it was already torn open when they found it. The whole thing just left me feeling weird. I've found lost wallets and phones before and returned them to people. I never once expected or demanded a reward. It's just the right thing to do. But these kids acted like I owed them something just for being decent human beings. My friend wanted me to post their faces on the neighborhood app and warn everyone about them. She said they were probably going to try this scam on other people. But I don't know. They were just kids being stupid. I don't want to ruin their lives over this. But seriously, what kind of kid demands a reward for returning something that wasn't theirs in the first place, and then threatens to keep stuff in the future if they don't get paid? The entitlement was unreal. The worst part is that I know they probably targeted me because I look young and they thought they could intimidate me. If I were a big guy or looked older, they probably would have just put the envelope in the mailbox and left. But because I'm small and look like a teenager, they figured they could push me around. I'm still annoyed about the whole thing. Not because of the money or even because they were demanding a reward. I'm annoyed because they made me feel unsafe in my own parents' house and stressed out their dog for no good reason. And then they had the nerve to act like I was the bad guy for not paying them for doing what any decent person would do. So this happened a few weeks ago when I was visiting my dad. I'm 58 years old and recently retired from my job as a high school principal after 30 years. I thought retirement would mean relaxing and doing things I actually enjoy, but apparently some people think it means I'm available to be their personal servant. My dad is 82 and still lives in his house, but he's been having some mobility issues lately. Nothing too serious, but enough that simple tasks like grocery shopping or organizing his medicine cabinet have become challenging. That's why I try to visit him every few weeks to help out with errands and spend quality time together. Dad lives in one of those neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone else's business. Most of the neighbors are decent people, but there's this one woman who lives 2 doors down. She's probably in her 50s and apparently has nothing better to do than sit on her front porch and monitor the entire street like she's some kind of neighborhood security guard. I'd noticed her watching me every time I came and went from Dad's house. She peeked through her curtains or positioned herself strategically on her porch whenever I walked to my car. It was weird, but I figured she was just curious about Dad's visitor. On this particular visit, I was staying for 4 days to help Dad with some bigger projects. His kitchen cabinets needed reorganizing, his garage was a mess, and he had a doctor's appointment I wanted to drive him to. I also planned to take him out for lunch at his favorite restaurant and maybe catch a movie together. I was heading out to the pharmacy to pick up Dad's prescriptions when the neighbor lady flagged me down from her porch. She waved at me like we were old friends, which was odd since we'd never actually spoken before. She greeted me with a good morning and asked if I was the son who visits sometimes. I confirmed that I was and explained that I was here helping my dad with a few things. She said it was perfect timing and asked if I could water her plants this weekend since I was retired and she would be busy with some commitments. I was taken aback. This woman didn't even know my name and she was asking me to do her yard work like I was some kind of hired help. I told her I appreciated her thinking of me, but I would be busy helping my dad out with a few things while I was here. She rolled her eyes and let out this exaggerated sigh. Then she said that since I was retired, I clearly didn't have anything better to do. That comment really got under my skin. Just because I'm retired doesn't mean my time has no value, or that I'm sitting around doing nothing all day. I spent decades working 60-hour weeks, dealing with difficult students, parents, and school board meetings. I earned my retirement, and I certainly didn't earn it to become this woman's unpaid gardener. I looked at her for a moment, smiled, and told her that I actually did have better things to do, just not for her. She huffed like an angry bull. She walked back into her house without another word, slamming the door behind her. I continued with my errands, feeling pretty good about standing up for myself. I picked up Dad's medications, stopped by the grocery store to get ingredients for his favorite soup, and grabbed us some ice cream for later. When I got back, Dad was sitting in his living room with this amused expression on his face. He told me that I had certainly made an impression on the neighborhood watch captain. When I asked what he meant, he explained that she had come over about 20 minutes after I left, demanding to know what kind of son he had raised. Apparently, I had been incredibly rude to her. I told him that all I did was decline to water her plants and told her I had better things to do. Dad said that wasn't how she told it. According to her, I was hostile and disrespectful when she was just trying to be neighborly. I shook my head. Some people really do live in their own reality. The next day, I was helping Dad clean out his garage when our neighbor from across the street came over. He's a nice retired teacher who Dad has known for years. He jokingly told me he heard I was the lazy one who wouldn't help out around the neighborhood. When I asked what he meant, he said he was just kidding. Karen had been telling everyone who would listen that I was some kind of lazy freeloader who refused to pitch in. She had been going door to door complaining about me. Dad mentioned that she had asked me to water her plants like I was her personal gardener. The neighbor said that was rich, coming from someone who hadn't mowed her own lawn in 3 years. She pays the teenager from down the street to do it. I asked if she really didn't do her own yard work. He confirmed that she didn't and that she was constantly asking other neighbors to help with stuff. Last month, she had wanted him to clean her gutters because she said he looked bored. He told her he would be happy to recommend a service. This was getting more ridiculous by the minute. Karen was calling me lazy while she was the one who didn't do her own chores and expected everyone else to do them for her. The next morning, I was loading my car to head home when Karen appeared on her porch again. This time, she had her phone out and was clearly recording me. She announced that she was documenting this harassment for the homeowners association. I asked what harassment she was talking about. She claimed I had been giving her dirty looks every time I saw her. I told her I hadn't even looked at her. She insisted that I was creating a hostile environment in the neighborhood. That's when my dad came outside. He's usually pretty mild-mannered, but he was clearly fed up. He told Karen that the only hostile environment here was the one she created by bothering everyone constantly. He said his son was visiting to help him, and she had tried to put him to work like he was her employee. Karen argued that I was retired and should be contributing to the community. Dad responded that I had contributed to the community for 30 years as a school principal. Now I was contributing by taking care of my elderly father. He asked what exactly she contributed besides complaints. Karen stood there opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. Dad continued by saying that if she wanted her plants watered, she should water them herself or hire someone. She needed to stop expecting everyone else to do her chores for free. Karen threatened to report both of us to the homeowners association. Dad told her to go ahead and that he would make sure to tell them about all the times she had asked him to take her trash cans to the curb and shovel her driveway. Karen walked back inside and slammed her door again. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.